Welcome to Unbelievable Stories. Today's story is full of shocking twists and real drama. Subscribe and like to stay updated. Let's dive in. If you yell one more time, Mr. Harrison, I'll hold you in contempt of court. The judge's face turned bright red, and I had to stop myself from laughing at how ridiculous she looked. Mr. Benson, control your client, she added sternly. I'd been told off more than once already, but swearing was second nature to me, so keeping quiet wasn't easy. As I started to speak, I saw the judge tense up, and Mr. Benson, my attorney and soon-to-be partner in the law firm where he worked, warned me not to speak so openly towards the judge unless I wanted to spend a night in jail. The court recorder stifled a giggle as they braced themselves for the torrent of bombs likely to fly from my mouth. On the other side of the courtroom, my ex-best friend, his wife, and my soon-to-be ex-wife sat nervously looking around the room. Jane, my soon-to-be ex, looked ashamed and downtrodden. Mike sat there with defeat on his face, and Lucy, his wife, sat looking pissed off. She obviously didn't like all their dirty laundry being aired in court. By now, you might be wondering about the events that led up to me being admonished by the simpleton in the black robe about my conduct in her courtroom. It all started one day, we'll call it Wednesday because it was a Wednesday. My name is Tom Parker. I am a 39-year-old foreman in the city maintenance department for the city of Lakeside, Colorado. I started with the city a week after I finished school. In winter, I plow the major thoroughfares. In summer, I do whatever needs to be done. Jane works a few hours a week at the local church as a break from her housework. Our city maintenance department is split into 4 quadrants. Each quadrant has its own supervisor and a foreman. I am not that supervisor. I never went to college and used common sense, so I could never get the position. Also, I avoid having anyone slurring near my mouth. Another qualifier: usually, if a supervisor tells a crew to do something, they will ask someone like me before they waste their time. All the foremen were promoted into their jobs, while supervisors were directly hired. Tuesday night had brought one of those nasty May thunderstorms that produced a lot of high wind and hail. My quadrant got hit the hardest with the wind and hail, so we had a lot of tree limbs and other debris to clear out of streets. I had 6 crews going around with dump trucks picking up that stuff. I drove around in a pickup with a list of street flooding complaints. I checked each complaint area to see if storm drains were blocked with debris. If they were, I'd call out one of the 2 vacuum trucks I had at my disposal. I also had 4 street sweepers running all day long. In the afternoon, I surveyed problem alleys to see if we'd have to bring in gravel soon for them. None of my 3 parks got mowed. I'd have to get crews on that in the morning. Jane and I had a nice 4-bedroom, 2-story home in an older neighborhood. We couldn't afford to live with the rich folk on the southwest side of town, but we didn't live in the east side gangland either. We got along fabulously with our neighbors. Nathan and Victor Patterson lived next door. Ron and Cindy lived directly behind us. My childhood friend Robert Lewis lived behind the Pattersons with his wife Lucy. All 4 households got along so well that we had no fences separating our backyards. Mike and I had been friends since we were in middle school. I got him into more trouble than he knew how to get out of, and to make matters worse, his parents were extra religious while mine gave less than a damn about what God said. Dad often told me, as long as I didn't knock some girl up or cost him a bunch of money, he really didn't care what I did most of the time. If Mike's mom and dad were going to nail him for something, I'd tell them I did it, and he was mistakenly blamed. I knew they hated me, so their opinion of me didn't really matter. Mike grew up to be as religious as his parents, if not worse. He went to a Bible college and became a preacher. He is the pastor at one of the local churches. I don't go to church except for Easter and Christmas. Jane, on the other hand, goes to church religiously, pardon the pun. While Mike was at college, he met Lucy. Lucy could have been a model. Lucy is 58, 115 pounds, blonde hair, blue eyes, and had a 36C2434 figure. With all of that going on, she is a prayer machine. Mike is like the E to my Yang, but there isn't a damn thing I wouldn't do for Heimer, so I thought. I got home on Wednesday evening to find that I had to warm up leftover meatloaf from Sunday for dinner. I really didn't mind doing that, but my wife hadn't actually cooked a weekday meal in a few months. I wanted to sit and put away a 6-pack, but the red mark on the calendar for that day told me I could have 1 beer with dinner, and no more the rest of the night. Red duty days were the days I was on emergency standby and could get called out at a moment's notice to handle some issue. I ate my dinner while Jane showered. I wished she'd spend as much time paying attention to my little Larry as she did in the damn shower. It was 7 p.m., and I wasn't sure if I'd see her again that evening. I got a helpless "how was your day?" when I got home, and that was about it. This had been going on now for a couple of months, and I was getting a bit tired of it. The worst part was our sex life. We used to get it on 3, maybe 4 times a week. In the past 3 months, I had gotten Saturday night sex twice, missionary only, and 2-week half tug jobs. She didn't even seem to notice me anymore, and that night was no exception. So I watched the Bears play the 49ers on TV and wished I could get my whiskey on. Around 12, I was contemplating going to bed when my phone rang. I figured it would be Mike whining about the Bears' defense failing miserably that night, or asking me to have my guys do something around his church, but it was the City-County Dispatch calling to tell me of a water main break on the north side of town near the Maple Creek Plaza. I packed a few snacks in my lunch cooler and headed out the door. I almost went upstairs and told Jane what was going on, but decided, screw her, she didn't seem to give a damn anyway, so let the bitch figure out on her own that I wasn't coming to bed. I got to the city yard and got the keys I needed while I was waiting for my crew, which would be made up of guys from every quad that night plus a supervisor from the city water department, and 4 of their guys. I hooked a trailer up to the new Volvo dump truck and loaded a Caterpillar backhoe on it. By the time I was done loading that, my crew was there, and we all headed for the place where we figured the break was. When we got there, it was obvious that the Northeast crews hadn't gotten to the storm sewers here because the street was flooded. I sent a couple of guys back to get a vacuum truck. It was 2 in the morning before I pierced the pavement with the backhoe. With all of the water still on the street, it was slow going. By 3, we had the pipe exposed and began hauling away the mud I had dug out of the hole. We would have fresh, dry sand and gravel from the city gravel pit to fill the hole back in at 8:30 a.m. The water guys had finally reconnected the pipe and tested their joint. The building inspector okayed the fix around 9:15. And by noon we were ready to repave the area. Since the paving would be handled by a separate contractor, I was able to get the equipment back to the yard by 12:45. At 2:15, I was pulling into my driveway with the knowledge that I was off work until Saturday now. I unlocked the door and went inside. Jane didn't appear to be home. She was off doing whatever the hell it was that she did all damn day, which lately didn't seem to include housework. I went into the kitchen to grab a beer and a sandwich. I had just closed the fridge when I heard the unmistakable sound of a woman getting the pounding of her life. It seemed to be coming from upstairs. I listened for a moment, and was pretty sure the sound was from upstairs. No wonder you don't screw me anymore, you filthy woman, I said to myself as I headed out of the kitchen. I opened the coat closet and pulled my Beretta .45 from its hiding place, and made my way up the stairs. The sound was louder upstairs. I could see the door to the master bedroom was ajar, so I walked stealthily up to it. I jumped through the door and leveled the pistol at the bed. No one was there. I quickly checked the bathroom just off the bedroom, and it too was deserted. Back in the hall, I was left with 2 choices. The guest bedroom door was closed. At least she respected our marriage bed, I thought to myself. I opened the door and once again leveled the pistol at an empty room. The only room I hadn't explored was Jane's craft room. I pictured her bent over her sewing table with the meat flying in and out of her tunnel. I kicked the door open and jumped into the room, ready to kill. The room was empty, but the sound was loud in there when I noticed the window overlooking the backyard was open. I looked out to see if she was screwing in the backyard. I saw that I needed to mow my grass, but no one was in the yard. As I scanned the yards around my house, I got the shock of my life. What the hell? Nathan and Victor have a pool? I looked that way and saw Nathan and Emily, the Patterson children, pounding like rabbits on a chaise lounge by their pool. Nathan was a junior in college, and Emily was due to start her freshman year in the fall. Shed had a crush on me since she was 12 or so, and I absurdly wondered if she thought of me at that moment. Neither one of them was anything to look at. Emily did have a killer body though, and her bountiful jugs were wiggling wildly as Nathan pounded her. Then it struck me that I was witnessing inbreeding. I thought, this only happens in places like Alabama or West Virginia, I said to myself. I knew I shouldn't watch, but it was like a train wreck. I just couldn't look away. I wondered if Nathan or Victor had any clue this was going on in their home. I doubted it. They weren't as straight-laced as Mike and Lucy, but I doubt even the wildest people I knew would condone that. I bet they're watching us. Look at them, Emily said to Nathan. Oh hell, that's so hot, said Nathan. She looked to her left, and I followed her gaze. I could see Mike's bare back in the upstairs window of his house. He was obviously drilling Lucy. I thought I'd hang for a few minutes, as that might have been the only chance I'd ever get to see Lucy naked. Then Mike and his partner turned around. Holy shit! I yelled so loudly that the sex stopped in the yard below. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Mike was pounding my Jane. I froze, not sure exactly what to do. I raised the pistol up and took aim at Mike. Movement below caught my attention at the last second. It was Nathan and Emily running stark naked for their house. I looked back up, intending to send some lead Mike's way, only to find that they had left the window. Goddamn filthy woman, I yelled as I went down the stairs. I stopped in my den long enough to grab my Winchester bullpup and slam a handful of .00 buck shells into the mag. Mike was going to die. The bitch was going to die. Lucy's stupid cat and parakeet were fair game as well. I was going to kick his door in and lay waste to him and his slut. I tucked the pistol into the waist of my jeans and headed out the door. I stopped about halfway down my driveway and just stood. I now understood a lot of things. I knew why my house wasn't clean. I knew why my meals came out of the freezer. I knew why my little Larry was neglected. I knew why the bitch took so many showers that they were ready to name the city reservoir after me. I walked back up my driveway and got into my truck. I backed out and left tire marks on the street as I headed for Builder's Depot. On the way, I contemplated everything I knew now. She never cooked anymore because Mike was wearing her out. She couldn't operate a mop or vacuum cleaner while she was getting her freak on either. The biggest question I had was, why would the two people in the world I was supposed to be able to count on the most stab me through the heart like that? I was on autopilot. I got to Builder's Depot and went directly to the door section and picked up 3 new lock sets. Sophia Carter at the paint counter waved at me, and I almost didn't notice. I half-assed waved back. When I got home, Emily and Nathan were waiting in my driveway. What do these perverts want? I asked myself. They looked like I was going to march them off to the gallows. Emily offered me a sheepish smile. We're sorry to have disturbed you, Mr. Harrison. We didn't mean to offend you. It's just I cut her off. Look, I give less than a shit if you two screw each other until your holes turn to tunnels. It's none of my business. You guys aren't even on my radar of problems right now. They turned sheepishly and walked toward their own house. I felt Emily's eyes on my hips as I walked into my house. I set the lock sets down and went to find my tools. As I approached the kitchen, I felt my blood boil. There, sitting at my table, was Mike. What the hell are you doing in my house, you stupid scumsucker? I came to talk to you as a friend. Friend? I laughed bitterly. That is rich. With friends like you, who needs an enemy? Do you think I am just going to say, hey Mike, old buddy, how is my wife's holes this morning? Jeff, it doesn't have to be this way. Well, you're right, oh Mike, old pal of mine. Do me a favor and hand me that butcher knife. I slid a knife across the table to him. He looked at it, and then looked at the Beretta in my hand. Come on, Jeff, he said a bit shakily. You can't seriously expect pick it up, asshole. You love Jesus so damn much, I want you to meet him now. Pick up the knife and let me put the make my day law to good use, you trespassing piece of shit. Mike jumped up and ran for the door. He stopped on the porch and turned back. Jeff, we've been friends forever. Are you willing to throw that away? I lost 2 people dear to me today, Mike. But I think when I get past all of it, you'll realize it really isn't a loss. Where's Jane? She's at my house. She's afraid to come over here. You tell her she has 5 minutes to get her ass over here if she wants even the slightest chance of staying married to me. Now get the hell off my property before I risk prison just to feel better. Mike scurried off, and I wondered how long it would take Jane to drag her cheating ass home. 4 minutes later, I wondered no more. I heard her sniveling and sobbing long before I saw her. I bet people wondered what was going on when they saw Jane walking up the sidewalk crying her eyes out. She reached to hug me, and I moved a step back. Keep your filthy hands to yourself. But I love you, baby. There's no one I want to spend my life with but you. Let's go inside. These assholes around here don't need to know our business. I went into the living room and sat on my favorite chair. She sat on the love seat and asked me, "Would you sit here next to me?" Hell no, I don't want to be near you. I have never liked uncomfortable silences or pregnant pauses, so I jumped right in. So, how long have you been getting pissed by that asshole? He loves you like a brother. He's your best friend, Jeff. Was my friend. I doubt it. Friends don't screw their friends' wives. It's just sex. I still love you. What a boatload of shit. It's just sex. Whoever thought of that excuse needs to have their head caved in with cinder blocks, I yelled. There's no need to be angry. You still have me. I'm not going anywhere. The hell you aren't. You are choosing Mike over me and our marriage. You can't give me 5 minutes of your time anymore, but you can bend over for him at the drop of a hat? How wonderful. I felt a headache coming on and put my head in my hands. She started getting up and walking towards me. Sit your ass back down. I hope it is worth a decade of marriage that you are tossing in the trash. I'm not tossing our marriage out. We can stay married. I'll just have sex with Mike. I just love the way his meat feels in me. I don't love him, just his meat. He says I can come take care of your needs once or twice a week. Well, isn't that mighty kind of him? I think I'll just go find myself someone else to take care of my needs. No, you're my husband, and no one needs to have sex with you except for me. We are still man and wife. Not much longer at this pace. Ex-wife is more fitting for a woman that drops her pants for a hypocritical scumsucker like Robert Lewis. No, please don't talk like that. I love you with all of my heart, but I love Mike's big me too. You just need to understand, Mike has it all planned out, baby. We all can be happy. Oh, I understand perfectly. You wish to have your cake and eat it too. It's not like that at all. Then explain it to me, damn it. I can't. You never will. I think Mike wants me back in 3 minutes. What the hell are you babbling about, you idiotic slut? She looked like I had slapped her. You've never called me names. You've never talked this way to me. What's gotten into you? Oh, well, let's see. What might have me a tad bit on edge? It might have something to do with the fact that I haven't slept since 6 a.m. yesterday morning and I worked all damn night. Or it might just be that I got home to find my wife drilling a guy that wasn't me, you stupid, cheating slut. She was crying and headed for the door. That's it, you filthy woman. Go to Mike. Go get some of the thick meat your holes crave. She turned around at the door. I don't see why we can't keep things like they are right now. It's not like you were home all the time. I can be his while you are at work in 4 or 5 nights. I slammed the door so hard I thought it splintered. Screw you. Go eat your cake. I yelled so loud that my throat hurt for half an hour afterward. I sat with my back to the door for a while, doing something that made me feel quite unmanly. Dad would have whipped my ass if he'd seen me with tears, so I sucked it up and got on with my tasks. I changed the lock sets on all of my doors and recoded the garage door opener. At 4, I decided to take a break. I was dragging ass and needed to sit. I flipped on the TV and tuned into Victor Springer. How fitting today, a show about cheating wives and messed up families. I didn't make it very far with Victor, as exhaustion took me. When I woke up, it was well past 9, and some asshole was knocking at my door. I got out of my chair and went to the door. It was Mike. What the hell do you want, asshole? I ought to beat the ever-loving dog shit out of you for being on my porch. I need a favor from you, man. Well, if you don't take the cake. I don't have a girlfriend yet for you to screw, shithead. Try elsewhere. Jessica needs you. She's over there bawling her eyes out. Can't you call her and tell her that you're not angry, and that everything will be alright? I tell you what. She loves your meat so much? Have it tell her everything will be okay. I'm done with both of you. What's she going to say when she finds out you're screwing Jane? I shot back, trying to get a rise out of him. She knows. She's happy, you know, so that the sneaking around can stop. She wants you two to stay together, though. Get your sick, perverted ass off my porch. Tell that slut that her shit will be on the porch in the morning so she can get it. Any door knocking will be met unkindly. I slammed the door again and went to find a cold beer. I'm still not sure why I did it, but I took my cold six-pack upstairs and sat in Jane's craft room and watched out the window. Soon it dawned on me I should have the video camera to collect evidence for the divorce. I went and got the camcorder. As I sat watching the back of Mike's house for activity, movement next door caught my eye. Victor Patterson was out at the pool. She was wearing a robe, and I hope to hell it stayed on, or barring that she was wearing a one-piece bathing suit underneath it. Victor might be the nicest person in the world, but damn, she fell out of the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down. Unlike her daughter, her body wasn't a pleasing distraction from her face. Nathan isn't much better, so it baffles me that Ethan and Emily are only unpleasant to look at and not downright ugly. There must be some recessive genes at work there. Well, God just wasn't smiling on me that day. Victor removed her robe and dove into the pool. I turned my attention back to Mike's house with the camera on the night vision setting. I could see Lucy and Jane sitting on their back porch swing. They weren't talking loud enough to hear, so I didn't bother trying to record them. I saw headlights splash across the back of Mike's house, and I knew that Nathan must be home. He manages a restaurant and works late most nights. He went straight to the pool and started stripping. What the hell did I do to deserve this? I asked myself. I watched Mike's house until I heard the splash of Nathan entering the pool. They cozied up and embraced and treaded water. I could hear their conversation perfectly. How was work, babe? Busy as hell. I had to fire one of the servers for smoking weed on his break. You warned him. I heard something interesting today. Oh? Do tell. Jeff kicked Jane out today. What? No way. He actually kicked her out today? Has he lost it? Those two would die without each other. I always figured she'd throw him out for his foul mouth. You have to be wrong. According to Ethan and Emily, when they were cleaning the pool they were cleaning something, all right. I thought to myself they saw Mike and Jane in Mike's window having sex. I guess Jeff must have been at home for some reason. They heard Jeff holler a profanity, and saw Mike and Jane quickly stop their activity. They said Jeff left the house and came back with a Builder's Depot bag and changed the locks on the house. I guess later Jane came over, and when she left, he slammed the door and called her a slut. I can't believe it, said Nathan. I'll have to see Jeff tomorrow and make sure he's okay. I would like for you to stay away from Mike. I always thought he looked at you and Jane a lot closer than he should have. I shuddered at the thought of Mike mentally undressing Victor. The sick pervert. Emily said she was going to take him a cake tomorrow to cheer him up. She's always thought highly of Jeff. He's crude as hell, but I can't think of anyone else I'd want on my side. I saw him this morning working on a street by the mall. Was he wearing a hard hat? Yes. You and your construction worker fetish. Maybe I can get Jeff to model it for you. I shuddered again. Normally a guy loves to hear that a member of the fairer sex finds him attractive, but for the first few weeks that we lived next to Nathan and Victor, I thought they were a gay couple. Victor can look quite manly. You're so bad, she told him. I can't for the life of me figure why Jane would rather screw Mike when she has Jeff at home. You're starting to make me get a complex. You know you're the only hunk for me, my sexy man. When I realized that a screwing was afoot, I decided to go to bed. I wasn't sure I'd sleep, but if I did, I didn't want to have nightmares about Nathan and Victor knocking boots. I turned the radio on just for some noise and heard the heavy metal grindcore show playing on the college radio station. I lay there listening to kick-ass tracks by Carcass, Deicide, and Obituary. Just before the show was over, they played Cannibal Corpse's Make Them Suffer. As I listened to the song, I realized I wanted to make Mike and Jane suffer. So as Corpse Grinder Fisher admonished me to make them suffer, make them suffer, make them suffer, I said I will, Corpse Grinder. I will. I was awakened the next morning by some douchebag pounding on my door. I shook off the last vestiges of sleep and went down to see who had an early morning death wish. I opened the door, ready to yell at Jane for disturbing me, only to find Lucy Andrews. Oh, it's you. What the hell do you want? Jane isn't packed just yet. I don't want you to pack her stuff, Jeff. I want you to let her come back home. And here I thought you were going to ask for something unreasonable. In going back to bed, I started to close the door, and she put her hand in the way. Wait, Jeff. Why are you doing this? Jane is hurting for you, and you won't consider her feelings. What's to consider? She wants to be with you and Mike more than she does me. I'm allowing her to be with you too, and I am staying out of the way. Mike and I can't have her live with us. We have an image we have to protect. You cheating perverts should have thought of that before you pulled my wife into your sick game. Why can't she live with you? Really? You don't see a problem here? I gave her a chance to stay. She chose your husband's meat over me. The most screwed up thing about it is that you don't seem to have a problem with it, but I do. Now leave me the hell alone, will you? She still loves you, Jeff. We didn't want to take her away from you. We love her, and you as well. I hate to see you throw your friendship with Mike away. He's dead to me. So is she. You can't mean that. She will still take care of your needs. Oh, why didn't you say so sooner? I feed and board her, buy her clothes, car, and everything she needs. She continues to screw you too, and I get tugged off once a week. Mike gets his harem and doesn't have to pay upkeep. Screw that. Do I get sex time with you? Sorry, Jeff. I'm a one-man woman. A one-man woman, I said bemusedly. Man, I'd sure like one of those. Well then, that's what I have to go find. Tell the slut her stuff will be out here in an hour or so. Come on, Jeff, stop acting like a caveman and join the modern age. Mike and I have an image to keep up for our church. We can't have Jane living with us. Well, it sounds as if you have a dilemma. Sucks to be you. I slammed the door and went to make me some bacon. Screw their image, I said to myself. I can't believe anyone thought I'd go for this stupid idea. They want to appear squeaky clean while having wild sex with my wife. Corpse Grinder's words came back to me, make them suffer. I called a guy that I worked with and asked him who had handled his divorce. He walked away with almost all of his hard-earned assets when he caught his wife sleeping with her brother. That inbreeding thing seemed to be prevalent. He gave me the name of the law firm. It seemed that Turner, Collins, and Wright specialized in representing men who didn't want to get royally screwed over in their divorces. I called and got an appointment that afternoon for a face-to-face with one of their best. Then I packed all of Jane's clothes and toiletries into bags and put them on the front porch. I boxed up a lot of the crap I knew she'd want and added those to the pile. Finally, I put her car keys under the floor mat and went to the bank. At the bank, I canceled all of the credit cards and closed my bank account and reopened one in my name only. She had a card in her name that I didn't know about until then. I gave them Mike's address so they could send him the bill. At 2 in the afternoon, I went to the law office. I had hoped to get Samuel Hart. He had a reputation for making quick work of any divorce attorney. Those he couldn't easily beat, he hired the secretary instead. They showed me into the office of Mark Reed. He was a scruffy guy, but his record spoke for itself. He sat there and didn't say a word as he looked over the files I had brought in. Then he called his paralegal in, told her something, and the girl left with my paperwork. Mr. Harrison, I think we can get you everything you want and take Mike down a notch or two. Do you have photo or video proof? No, but the neighbor kids saw them too. I just want her out of my life. I don't care what she does after that. The paralegal brought in a bunch of papers, and I started signing. Derek explained what each one was and why it was necessary. Then he gave me a list of things I needed to do. I had already done a few of them. I gave him his retainer and went home to nap. Jane's stuff was gone when I got home. There was a note taped to my door. I took it inside and laid down on the couch. Springer was on. The note was from Jane, imploring me to allow her to come home. No mention of giving up Mike's meat. Derek and I had decided to serve her and Mike with legal papers at church on Sunday. I got a kick out of the idea and decided I'd attend. There were over 50 messages on my answering machine connected to my landline. I deleted them all in one fell stroke. With the aid of beer, I was able to sleep well that night. When I went to work the next morning, I set to fixing Mike's wagon. First, I called up the city accounting department. I had allowed my crews to haul several loads of gravel to Mike's church for nothing. I had kept the tier slips, and now I knew why. Linda Harper assured me the bill would be entered as late or unpaid, so Mike would be getting a call from the collection department. At $60 a ton, plus another $40 a load transportation cost, Mike now owed the city $9,000 for gravel and would be getting a visit from the building inspector since he never pulled permits for the work. I also wondered out loud in front of the water company supervisor if they had a compliant water meter. I knew they had an older residential model and would have to cough up $1,800 to replace it. Mike knew I kept them from paying the piper on a lot of things. Make them suffer. I was going to bankrupt the prick. I also knew of several home projects Mike hadn't done properly. Building inspectors now knew of those. Mike would pay out of the nose to get it all straight. I knew he'd call in a while, pissed off. I told my supervisor what I was doing with the tear sheets. Just as I knew he would, Mike called at noon. What are you trying to pull, Jeff? What do you mean? You know what I mean. Building inspectors telling me I have to undo the whole parking lot. You said everything would be fine. Well, it seems I forgot to turn in a bunch of paperwork. But don't worry, you'll be reprimanded. I hope they fire you. My supervisor came in just then. He knew who was on the phone. Jeff, about that late paperwork. Remind me to put a scathing post-it note in your file. You'll have to get a post-it note to remind me to remind you. Okay, Jeff. Try not to do it again. Oh, that was some reprimand, said Mike. I'm surprised he didn't fine you a nickel. He did. File all of my tear slips, Mike. Be expecting a bill. He hung up rudely. The rest of the day passed normally, and I ended up at Moe's bar that evening for a beer or 12. City workers and cops frequented Moe's, and by 11 many of them had heard my story, either from me or from one of the several who had heard it earlier, and a full-out campaign of harassment was underway. One buddy on the police force mentioned that Mike might get pulled over more often now. My new fishing buddy on the fire department decided that the church might make the inspection list on Monday, and the fire marshal would give it his full attention. These churches are always out of date on something, he said. We usually don't enforce the code too harshly with them, but I think Tony will feel that the safety of the congregation and the church's neighbors might be worth considering. Anna Lopez, a secretary for the county clerk's office, mentioned that the assessor might discover an error on Mike's property tax assessment for last year and a past due amount might have to be dealt with. Make them suffer indeed. Saturday morning, I was working in my garage. I had tried to work in my backyard, but between the half-naked genetic misfortunes next door and the swinging assholes behind them, my backyard was anything but a haven. I was cleaning up a cabinet I was restoring when I heard a furtive noise behind me. These dicks just never learn, do they? I could literally feel eyes boring into my back. I just knew it had to be Jane. I spun around to tell the trash-eating scumbag to hit the bricks, only to lock eyes with Emily. Hi, Jeffrey, I mean Mr. Harrison. Hi, what do you need, Emily? Looking at her, I thought whoever coined the term butterface was definitely gazing upon Emily Patterson when he did. She definitely had a body to die for, and at the moment she wasn't covering much with her bikini and thong. I could feel my Larry involuntarily rising, but thinking of her extracurricular activities with her brother killed it. I have a video you might find useful, Mr. Harrison. I took it a week ago. She handed me a USB stick and allowed her hand to linger in contact with mine. Meanwhile, my eyes locked onto her tits. I looked at her face again to control my meat and saw undeniable lust in her eyes. She blinked, and it was gone. I have chores I have to do, but I thought the video on there might help you in your case, Mr. Harrison. I'll look at it as soon as I can, Emily. Thank you for bringing it. She turned around and headed off the door and looked back over her shoulder. I saw something in her face but couldn't place the look. It's my pleasure to be of assistance, Jeff. Have a good one. She had never openly called me anything other than Mr. Harrison. I put the memory stick in my pocket and continued on with my tasks. I finally got my lawn mowed and only had to endure Jane screaming and wailing from Mike's balcony for most of it. I put buying a loud MP3 player on my to-do list. I kept hoping Nathan and Victor would call the cops, but to no avail. The whole family abandoned their pool and opted for the AC in their home. Around 5, I decided to head over to Big ALS Barbecue for their famous melt-in-your-mouth rib platter. As I was eating, John Morris, Luce's brother, came in and spotted me. John was an engineer for the City County Road and Street Department. He and I had worked together many times and had a good rapport. I wasn't sure what to expect from John, so I pretended not to notice him. He told Maria Simmons, Joe's wife and longest-standing employee, that he had a togo order and paid. She told him it would be a few moments, and I thought I was home free. Next thing I know, John is by my table. Hi, Jeff. I haven't seen you in ages. John, I've been pretty busy. Seems every time we get one storm cleaned up and dealt with, another two roll through. Yeah, I hear that. We are going to open bidding next week for replacing the Madison Street Bridge. You guys will get some of the tasks for that, but the commissioners want it to be mainly contractor work to keep public crews freed up for other projects. That sure would be nice. We need to get at least 100 potholes filled and 3 park irrigation systems repaired. So, how's life treating you? I couldn't tell if he was fishing for information or if he didn't know anything yet. We made small talk for a few minutes, and then he said, I understand the drainage at my brother-in-law's church has come under scrutiny, and he'll be paying some large dollars to the city for the upgrades. I am glad someone is finally stepping on that dirtbag's toes. Remind me to never get on your bad side, Jeff. He clapped me on the shoulder. See you around, Jeff. He went and got his food and left. I finished my meal and left. I stopped at Chang's Liquor and bought a bottle of vodka and went home. I was just about to sit in front of the TV when I remembered the USB stick that Emily had brought me earlier. I popped it into the port on my laptop and opened it. I saw only one file and opened it. I was treated to a shot of Emily leaning out of her bedroom window. She wasn't wearing anything below the waist and had her fingers working in and out of her. I watched for a minute and realized she was saying something. Oh babe, I hope you know how you turned me on. God, I'd love to jump on your meat. I began to recognize the sound of my lawn mower coming in through the open window. I remembered several times that she had watched me mow. On the screen, she had just come and was shaking her ass with ecstasy. I was about to fast forward to find out if there was anything pertinent to me on the video when Nathan came into the room. Hold it right there, young lady. Are you Mike Morris? I cringed, knowing I was a regular sexual fixture in the Patterson household. I am. Ethan, pretend you're him, will you? Screw me and make me believe it's him. At this point, I started scrolling through the video. After about a minute of the incestuous bromance hour, I saw what had prompted Emily to bring me this video. I wished she had erased the other parts, but I think she wanted me to see her rubbing one out. Nathan had stopped in mid-stroke and grabbed the camera. Soon, the screen was filled with Mike, Jane, and Lucy in a threesome on their terrace. I felt so stupid that they had done this with me only 50 yards away. I knew I had evidence now I could use in my divorce. I made a phone call to a guy who owed me a favor. The video would have another purpose before we ever got to court. Make them suffer. For the first time in ages, I was up early on Sunday morning and ready for church. I had my morning coffee and a bagel and read the news. At 20 minutes till 11, I drove to the Lakeside Presbyterian Church. In the parking lot, I saw 3 other people who, like myself, likely didn't frequent Mike's services. I followed them in and nonchalantly took a seat in the third pew I came to. I looked back and caught the eye of Henry Carter, who operated the audio-video system for the services. Robert worked on my park crew and owed me a favor or two. I looked at the bulletin to see exactly when I would have my fun. It would be after the offering plates were passed among the masses, which would work perfectly. The choir entered. Lucy and Jane walked in close together. I wondered if any of the blue-haired old ladies had any clue what the minister's wife and the first alto had been up to the night before. Mike came out and began babbling about forgiveness being most important in the eyes of God. I almost thought that he knew I was in the audience. I didn't once hear the 7th commandment mentioned, though. We sang a few tunes about Jesus, and then the plates were passed around. I knew that when the plates were gathered, they were delivered to Robert at the audio-video console. He would count the money during the sermon so that he and the church secretary could deposit the money on her way home from services. About 12 minutes after the offering, we reached the part one had been waiting for. Mike said a prayer welcoming all newcomers into the house of God. Then he asked that all of the guests attending please come forward and introduce themselves. My 3 guests all stood from their various positions around the congregation and went to the pulpit. The little kid next to me started to tell me to go, but his mom stifled him instantly with a pop to the back of the head. I had to chuckle. Mike shook hands with each and asked them to introduce themselves. A young brunette spoke first. I am here to see Lucy Andrews. Lucy, looking puzzled, came forward as the brunette handed the mic to a pimply-faced red-haired kid. I'm here to see Jane Harrison, he said. Jane came down and joined Lucy in front of the 3. Pimples handed the mic to their boss son, Peter Thompson. Robert Lewis, Lucy Andrews, and Jane Harrison, you have all three been served. With that, the three simultaneously pushed documents into the astonished lover's hands. At that point, Mike got his microphone back and asked, "Why have you defiled my sanctuary this way?" As if on cue, Robert streamed the video clip that I had carefully edited to protect my disgusting neighbors on the big projection screen behind the pulpit. The image of Mike, Jane, and Lucy riding naked around the patio was larger than life in front of the congregation. I saw 4 or 5 old biddies reaching for their jitterbugs, and I knew the cops would be here soon. One old lady approached Mike and racked his nuts with her cane. At some point during the melee, Jane read her paper and let loose a blood-curdling scream. I was headed for the door and turned to see who was slaughtering her. Unfortunately, both she and Mike saw me, and she came running. Mike couldn't have run if the Nazis had been coming to toss him into an oven. I spun for the door only to be met by a cop who must have been at the donut shop across the street. Days later, after all of the dust had died down and the DA had refused to file charges against me, Mike had the privacy fence installed that his restraining order against me required. Sure, I wasn't allowed anywhere near his church except on city business, but he wasn't allowed to harass me either. Even better, Jane was included in the order and only allowed to contact me through Mark Reed. Tony Cruz, our assistant DA, had even chuckled a bit when I told him how I had slipped the USB stick into the collection plate for Robert to find. Mike had been screaming for me to be charged with trespassing, but since it was a public service, he didn't get far with his squawking. Robert was relieved of his duties, but due to Mike not wanting any more publicity, he didn't say a word when Robert took a job at the Presbyterian church across town. Mark Reed called me 2 days later to inform me that would go before the Honorable Julia Clark in 2 weeks to begin proceedings. She can be a real ball-buster. She tends to give the wife more leeway than the husband, but since you already own the house, there's not too many ways she can screw you. She always gives alimony to cheaters, though, which makes me a bit nervous. My immediate supervisor is a kid just out of college. I pretty much call the shots in my quad since he never overrides me. He knows I know the shit and leaves it at that. The supervisors of 2 other quads are easygoing but don't let their foremen have as much control, but they'll get out there and work with their crews. It's best if my supervisor stays in his office. Charles Bennett is the supervisor for the worst quad in town. He either gives his leads any rein nor does he help his crews. Marvin is one of those guys you just walk the other way if you see him coming. Dick is probably the best term for him. Most guys say they'd rather pull their ball hair out with pliers than spend 5 minutes talking to Marvin. Most of us believe he caught some member of the city council sexing up their dog, or he was the mayor's gay lover, and that's how he has managed to keep his job this long. Luckily, I rarely saw Marvin. Every great once in a while, had actually see me in my office when he had nothing going on and stop in. Today he obviously had nothing pressing and graced me with his presence. I knew that if he managed to have a 5-minute conversation and not say anything racist or sexist, it would snow even though the 4th of July was only a week away. So, Jeffy boy, I hear tale that you are getting this divorce. What happened? She catch you with your schlong in the cat's poop chute? I wasn't about to tell this prick the truth. No, I just got tired of her. Do you have a judge yet? Yeah, Judge Miller is hearing the case. That horrifying witch? She screwed my boy royally in his divorce. Gave that brother-loving slut he married the house and the car. My son barely got to keep his dog. Yeah, well, see how it goes. I've got a good lawyer. You better. She's going to make you pay. Marvin's lack of empathy for my situation only fueled my resolve to come out on top. I was going to make sure that Jane and Mike paid for what they did. The day of the hearing, I was ready. I had my evidence, my lawyer, and my determination. Mark Reed had prepped me well. We entered the courtroom, and there was Mike, trying to look confident. Jane sat next to him, looking pitiful. Lucy was there too, giving me a look that could kill. The hearing began, and Derek presented our case. The judge looked through the evidence, and I could see her frown deepen as she saw the video and read through the statements. Mike's lawyer tried to argue that the video was an invasion of privacy, but Derek countered that it was taken in plain view from a neighbor's window. Judge Miller seemed unimpressed with Mike's lawyer's arguments. When it was Jane's turn to speak, she tried to paint me as a neglectful husband. She said I worked too much and didn't pay enough attention to her. But Derek was ready. He brought up the countless times she had been seen with Mike, the nights she spent at his house, and the video evidence of her infidelity. Mrs. Harrison, Judge Miller said, I find your actions to be reprehensible. You have betrayed your husband in the most fundamental way. Mr. Harrison, I see no reason why you should have to pay alimony to a woman who has been so blatantly unfaithful. Jane looked like she had been slapped. Mike sat there, stunned. The judge continued, Mr. Harrison, you will retain the house and all marital assets. Mrs. Harrison, you are to vacate the premises immediately. This court is adjourned. I walked out of that courtroom feeling like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I had won. Jane had nothing. Mike had nothing. I was free. As I drove home, I thought about what had happened. I thought about Emily's video and how it had helped me. I thought about all the ways I had made Mike's life harder. And I realized that corpse grinder was right. I had made them suffer. And it felt damn good. Thanks for watching. What do you think about Tom's response? Was it justified or too extreme? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more gripping stories. See you next time.